tonight Impact Wrestling presents Hard to Kill live on pay-per-view and on FITE TV. Of course, Hard to Kill is Impact's first pay-per-view of 2021. It's the first of 4 pay-per-views this year. The Impact have moved over the last few years to the quarterly pay-per-view model, so these pay-per-views are few and far between, but they certainly are the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one when it comes to Impact Wrestling storytelling. Arguably, as well, this is probably the biggest pay-per-view they've done, I would say, since Slammiversary last year, when it was the big reset, really, for Impact, when they brought in some of the former Impact Wrestling stars, brought in some new stars as well, those ex-WWE superstars. This is a massive, massive, massive event for Impact Wrestling. Why? Because obviously you can see him right there. It's Kenny Omega. It's his first Impact Wrestling in-ring appearance tonight at Hard to Kill. So it's a huge, huge, huge event tonight, and it's certainly something that I know everyone on here on the channel that's been watching all the Impact Wrestling videos that we've done is looking forward to. I know I'm certainly looking forward to. So what we're going to do today is have a bit of a predictions, bit of a preview video for all of the matches that have been announced tonight, continue, and also actually talking about that main event that obviously got changed last night with Alex Shelley out and Moose in. We'll be talking about all of that, so let's get straight into the matches, and let's start off with a match on the pre-show, which is Josh Alexander versus Brian Myers. Now obviously this was set up this past week on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Brian Myers was complaining once again to Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore, and Josh Alexander took exception to that. Obviously, they had the match a couple of weeks ago, ended in disqualification, I believe, when the Karate Man, Ethan Page, got involved there. So they're going to run it back. This is on the pre-show tonight. This isn't on the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, but when it comes to Josh Alexander, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if this isn't the only appearance that we see of Josh Alexander tonight at Hard to Kill, because of course we do have Ethan Page. We do have Ethan Page versus the Karate Man coming up later. We'll touch on that in a second. And obviously that could be the last appearance for Ethan Page in Impact Wrestling. He's no longer under contract. He's a free agent. So possibly Josh Alexander could have his match on the pre-show tonight, but then he could also be involved in that Ethan Page versus Karate match later on in the show. As far as this match, I'm a big fan of Brian Myers. I think obviously we know his history when it comes to the WWE. You know, possibly he was underutilized, not utilized the way that he should have been, and all that kind of stuff. We know what Brian Myers has done throughout his career. We know what Brian Myers is truly capable of in the ring, and we know what use he is being on the side of behind the scenes, and we know what use he is of his time in WWE, and it was a time in WWE where WWE wanted Brian Myers to be a producer for the program and for Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. So we know how useful Brian Myers is, and I think he's done well in Impact Wrestling so far. Has he achieved everything he wants to achieve in Impact? I would probably say no, but I think he's in the right spot for his career right now. I think he's perfectly where he should be. As far as I think the winner of this match, I would say I think Josh Alexander wins. I think 2021 is going to be a massive year for Josh Alexander. I think 2021 is going to be the year where we see Josh Alexander truly transition into a main event level superstar. I do think Josh Alexander can be a world champion in Impact Wrestling. We know that Ethan Page is going to be leaving Impact, or has left, frankly, already. So it's going to be a big year for Josh Alexander, and I expect big things. And I think that will kick off with Josh Alexander coming out victorious against Brian Myers in this one. So I'm going to go with Josh Alexander to win this one, but I don't think it'll be Josh Alexander's only appearance on the show. Next match is a mixed tag team match. We have Rosemary teaming up with Crazy Steve to face off against Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K. Now again, this was also set up on Impact this past week. It was actually announced after the fact, though, on social media a couple of days after Impact on Access TV. We had a situation where Rosemary was going up against Tennille Dashwood, and then Caleb with a K gets involved, and then earlier on in the show, Taya Valkyrie was like, I'll come out to with the ring review, and Rosemary was like, no, don't worry about it, we've got this covered. Obviously she was referring to herself, but also she was referring to Crazy Steve, former Decay tag team partner, getting involved. So it looks like potentially we could see a situation where Rosemary is reuniting with Crazy Steve and they're reforming the Decay. Obviously the Decay, former Impact tag team champions, which was Crazy Steve, Abyss, and Rosemary. Don't worry, Abyss isn't coming back to Impact. He's still with WWE in his producer role, but it certainly is nice to see Crazy Steve and Rosemary come back together. Of course, Crazy Steve walked Rosemary down the aisle in her wedding with Johnny Bravo, didn't she? And we could maybe see a Johnny Bravo appearance here. I don't think so, but it certainly looks like they're setting up Rosemary for life after Taya Valkyrie, because as I mentioned with Ethan Page, Taya Valkyrie, of course, is another name. It is rumoured that her contract is set set to expire soon. So if that is the case, maybe they're transitioning Rosemary away from Taya Valkyrie and they're repositioning Rosemary to be with Crazy Steve once again. So I think that could be the situation there. As far as predicting a winner for this one, it's a tough one. I'm going to go with Rosemary and Crazy Steve. I think that to me makes the most sense considering the way that the angle was shot Tuesday night on Impact, with Crazy Steve making the save and the Decay coming back together. I could see this feud, to be honest, continuing post Hard to Kill. I think considering that the angle was just shot on Tuesday, on TV anyway, this was just shot on Tuesday, I think that it does feel like a rush match for the pay-per-view, but it does look to me and feels like to me that we'll probably see more of it going forward. I wouldn't be surprised either if we saw like a rematch or something like that on Impact on Access TV too. So I will go with Rosemary and Crazy Steve to win this one, but I certainly could see more of this going forward on Impact. Let's move to the next match. It's a 6-man tag team match, and it's old school rules because it's Tommy Dreamer teaming up with Cousin Jake and Rhino to face Joe Doring, Eric Young, and Dina. Yes, he's lost his first name, but it's just Dina at this point. It feels like every Tommy Dreamer match at this point is old school rules, right? That feels like the what it is with Tommy Dreamer. When he has his pay-per-view matches, whether it's Slammiversary, was he in the Gauntlet at Bound for Glory? I think he was. But every pay-per-view match or special event he has, it's old school rules. That's just what Tommy Dreamer does. Whether he's facing Moose or Brian Myers or whoever, it's old school rules. And that's been the case here. The storyline of this one, of course, is that Eric Young's been forming his own faction. I saw that Dina on social media was referring to it as the Design. I don't know if that's an official tag team name or a faction name. You can let me know if you've heard that as well in the comment section below. But I think I saw them reference the Design, so the Design could be the faction name for Eric Young. He's been saying that ever since he's returned to Impact, hasn't he? That it's all been by design, it's all been part of the plan. All of this stuff with Rich Swann was all part of a grand design and a grand plan by Eric Young. So I could see something like that when it comes to their name. In terms of prediction, I think it's pretty obvious that Eric Young would win this one. His faction would win this one. I don't think Eric Young's done in terms of recruiting people for his faction either. I think that obviously he's recruited Dina, Joe Doring. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we had another name join him in this faction. I don't think it'll be Cousin Jake, and obviously Rhino is still waiting for Heath to recover. We are going to be doing an Impact Hard to Kill potential surprises video that's going to drop later today as well, so I won't talk too much about Heath in this video, but I think potentially we could maybe see a Heath return at Hard to Kill. Who knows? Fingers crossed. But in terms of a prediction for that one, I'll go with Eric Young to win it. I think it makes the most sense for Eric Young's faction to win. If you're going to try and get over a new dominating faction, how do you do that? You have them win, and don't stop winning. So I think that'll be the case when it comes to Eric Young's The Design, if that's what they're calling it. So I think that might be the situation there. But old school rules, if you're not aware as well, basically means anything goes, no holds barred, extreme rules, you name it, whatever you want to call it, no disqualification. It just means it's going to be violent, chaotic, weapons, probably a bit of a cluster at points. But I think the brand name is Hard to Kill, right? The pay-per-view name is Hard to Kill. If that is the case, then you're going to probably want a bit of violence. You're going to probably want a bit of blood. We're certainly going to get it in the Barbed Wire Massacre match later on in the event, but we might also get it here. So this is going to be something very stiff. You look at the 6 guys in this, it's going to be stiff. There's going to be lots of weapons. There's going to be lots of gimmick spots here, and I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be quite a fun match. I think it's going to be a bit of a sleeper match. Sometimes I know some people don't like these kind of matches, but they can be a lot of fun. They can be a lot of fun, and they certainly can break up the monotony of cards when they go on long, especially in an event, of course, where there are no fans. There aren't going to be any fans at Hard to Kill tonight, so that might be the situation there as well, that the chaos of this match actually makes it quite fun to watch. So I think Eric Young's faction will win this one, but I think it's going to be a very fun match to say the least. Let's move on, and we have Ethan Page versus the Karate Man. Now this is interesting because, of course, that's both Ethan Page. They're both Ethan Page. If you can't tell, they're not identical twins. It's Ethan Page and his alter ego, the Karate Man. What's interesting about this one is that obviously it's been advertised for Hard to Kill tonight. We will see it at Hard to Kill tonight, but it's not. Ethan Page is not going to be at the event tonight. He's not going to be in the building. Ethan Page isn't going to be actually there physically in person. This is going to be shot cinematic style. This was shot way back when in November as part of those marathon-long Impact tapings back in November. So Ethan Page, of course, his contract expired with Impact Wrestling on the 1st of January 2021. He's no longer under contract to Impact. He's currently a free agent. And the only reason he's appearing at this event, the only reason he's going to be on our television screens tonight is because this was filmed back in November. He hasn't filmed any new content with Impact Wrestling since. Why? Because he's not under contract. He's no longer an Impact Wrestling wrestler. Obviously, there's lots of discussions about his future. From the last we heard, he's not expected to re-sign with Impact Wrestling. He's not going to re-sign with Impact Wrestling. Where he goes, whether it's WWE or AEW, we don't know at the moment. There have been those things on his website where he's pulled the merch from his website as well. So lots of people are discussing where is Ethan Page going to end up next. It doesn't look like it's going to be Impact. So it's very, very likely this will be Ethan Page's final Impact Wrestling appearance. What does that mean? I don't really know. I would assume they're going to find a way to write Ethan Page off of Impact Wrestling television, whether that's doing this weird cinematic ending with Ethan Page and the Karate Man. I don't know. I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about Josh Alexander versus Brian Myers that I think potentially we could see multiple appearances by Josh Alexander tonight. Obviously, I think we could see another appearance by Josh Alexander during this match, and I think we could see Josh Alexander somehow be involved in this, whether he attacks Ethan Page or whether he confronts him and the North splits up, or they attack, or Ethan Page is violently assaulted by Josh Alexander. That writes him off of television. Either way, I think tonight's going to be the final appearance of Ethan Page, and I think also it's going to be the final appearance of the North. Whether or not they officially break up, I don't know, but I think that's what we're going to see tonight at Hard to Kill. So in terms of a prediction, in terms of this one, I don't even really know how to predict it. Who wins here? I don't really know. I think if I'm going to predict a winner, I'm going to say Josh Alexander. Not Ethan Page, not the Karate Man, Josh Alexander. Because I think Josh Alexander obviously somehow will get involved in this, and somehow they're going to write Ethan Page off of television. I think that's the most likely way, because from what we've heard and from what we've seen online and through the grapevine and all that fun stuff, Ethan Page isn't re-signing with Impact. So it looks like tonight would, by proxy, be his final appearance of Impact Wrestling. That looks to be the case there. Let's move on to the next match, which of course is for the X Division Championship. We have X Division Champion Manik defending against Chris Bay and Rohit Raju. Now this is a really interesting one because obviously we had the Super X Cup last weekend at Genesis, which Ace Austin won. So I would think whoever wins this match goes on to face Ace Austin going forward for the X Division Championship. Now where that will be, is Ace Austin going to confront the winner of this match? I don't really know. I really don't know. I've been critical of the X Division over the course of the last couple of months when it comes to Impact. I do think there needs to be greater emphasis put on the division. I do think there needs to be greater emphasis on bringing more stars into the X Division. I think that's looks like Impact Wrestling are doing that by bringing the likes of Ace Austin getting more involved once again with the X Division. I think they are doing that by having Chris Bay get involved once again with the X Division. If I had to predict a winner for this match, this sort of goes back to who do you want to win versus who do you think is actually going to win. Now, I would want Chris Bay to win this match, and I'm going to predict that Chris Bay wins this match. I know you might say, well, Manik only just won the X Division Championship. Why would he drop it so soon? Impact Wrestling really isn't afraid of the short title reigns. They're really not. So I definitely could see a scenario where Chris Bay wins the X Division Championship. And what do we get after that? We get Chris Bay versus Ace Austin feuding over the X Division Championship. That is money right there. That is unbelievable. That is money. Because I've said Chris Bay and Ace Austin, they're two future world champions. They're two guys that Impact Wrestling should build the entire company around going forward. They're two guys that can be feuding over the Impact World Championship as the two big guys for the company over the next 2 or 3 years, because that's how long they're under contract for. So I'm going to go with Chris Bay to win this one. I think it's going to be a very fun match. Obviously also, it's essentially a rematch from Impact Emergence way back when was that? August? September? Whenever that was. But of course, Impact Emergence was where Rohit Raju won the X Division Championship, but that match was Chris Bay versus Rohit Raju versus TJP. Fast forward to January, we've got Chris Bay, Rohit Raju, and essentially TJP, but TJP's the X Division Champion, and I think this time, Chris Bay will win it from Manik in this match, TJP. So I'm going to go with Chris Bay to win that one. Let's move on and talk about the Knockouts Championship, because of course the Knockouts Championship is also on the line at Hard to Kill. Kill, we have the Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo facing off against Taya Valkyrie. Now, Taya Valkyrie, this is very interesting as well, because Taya Valkyrie, along with Ethan Page and other people currently with Impact Wrestling, her contract is set to expire very soon. Now, it's not going to set to expire at the same time as Ethan Page, because of course Taya Valkyrie is at Hard to Kill tonight. There's been discussions about will she, won't she re-sign. I think it's not as cut and dry as the Ethan Page situation. I think obviously she's got huge history with Impact, and she's got a huge amount of respect and admiration for the people backstage, and a huge fondness for the people backstage. Of course, the Knockouts division as well is so strong. It's the cornerstone of the company. If you go to an AEW, you'll go into a less division, in my opinion, and a company that views women's wrestling different, in my opinion, as well. So that's a factor too. Obviously, there have been discussions about her going to WWE. Her husband, John Morrison, works for WWE. She'd be an excellent addition to the women's division over there, so that is also a possibility. I don't know if a decision has been made on her part when it comes to her contract. Obviously not, but that has led to some speculation that maybe tonight also will be her final night with Impact Wrestling, the same way that it could be Ethan Page's final appearance for Impact Wrestling. So because of that, because of the contract situation, I'm going to go with Deonna Purrazzo to win tonight and retain the Knockouts Championship. I think obviously she not only won Knockout of the Year, she won Wrestler of the Year for 2020. She has been the star of the Knockouts division. She really has, not just by being the champion, but by having great matches, having main events. Really enjoyed her feud with Jordynne Grace. I'd love to see them revisit that soon. And I just think Deonna Purrazzo is on such a roll. She signed a deal with Impact, a long-term deal with Impact last year, while she was Knockouts champion. I think also the contract situation with Taya Valkyrie, it all just points the way that Deonna Purrazzo will retain the Knockouts championship tonight. But I think it's going to be an absolutely superb match, a real superb match, and a match I'm really looking forward to. Let's move on and talk about the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. You can see them there because the Knockouts Tag Team Championships do return tonight at Hard to Kill. Of course, we've had the tournament that has all led to this. The Knockouts Championship return for the first time since 2012, 2013 time. We have Havoc and Nevaeh going up against Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan. Now, I'm not going to change from my prediction because way back I predicted that Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz would win this tournament. I said that they were ones to watch in 2021, and I still do think that's the case. I do really like here that we've got two legitimate female tag teams competing for the tag team titles. We're not looking at a situation where two singles people have come together and made a tag team and they're doing really well in the tournament and they're competing for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship. I really do like the fact that we've got two legitimate tag teams that have tagged together prior to this tournament in the finals for the Tag Team Championship. So it's great to see the Tag Team Championships back. It's the next evolution for the Knockouts division. I enjoyed the Knockouts Tag Team titles when they were around previously. I think, like with everything with Impact Wrestling at the time, they just got lost in the chaos. But over the last few years, and it's always been the case going back to when the Knockouts division was first founded back in 2007, 2008, that the Knockouts division has been a cornerstone for Impact. I mentioned it before. They have been an aspect that differentiates themselves from the WWE or from AEW, just how strong their division is, how it's always been about pro wrestling. It's always been about matches and characters in the ring and not about any of the other terrible stuff that we've seen from WWE or other companies when it comes to female performers over the years. It's always been about having great matches, having great wrestlers, and having excellent feuds, and that's the case with the Knockouts division. So in terms of a winner for this one, like I said, I'm going to still go with Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz because that was the pick I made from the start. I can't differentiate from that, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Havoc and Nevaeh won this one, but I'm going to stick with my original pick there. So Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, I'm going to say will leave as the Knockout Tag Team Champions. Of course, also tonight at Hard to Kill, what do we have? Barbed Wire Massacre. Now, this one is going to be brutal. This one is certainly going to be violent. This one is certainly going to be bloodied. It's the first time we've had a Barbed Wire Massacre in what? Is it something like 3 years, maybe a bit longer than that, 4 years. We've only had a few in the history. I think back to Abyss versus Sabu. I know Abyss had one with Judas Macias back in the day as well. So it's going to be brutal and it's going to be violent. It's going to be bloody. If you don't know what a barbed wire massacre is, essentially you have the ring ropes removed and replaced with barbed wire, and you also have a plethora of barbed wire fun in there as well. Barbed wire weapons, barbed wire baseball bats, barbed wire plywood boards, anything you name it is wrapped in barbed wire. So this one is going to be bloody, to say the very least. I think actually it's going to be way more brutal than what we've ever seen this kind of match before. The reason I think that is because, of course, we don't have any fans. Now, the reason is when you don't have any fans, obviously we've seen it since Impact have been running the shows without any fans, that you just hear everything and you feel everything anymore. And sometimes it does make the show more difficult to watch. Sometimes it does mean that matches are more difficult to watch. Sometimes it does mean that you're like, oh, it does take you out a bit slightly. But the fact that there are no fans involved in this one, to me, it's almost like it makes it even more brutal. It makes it even more violent because we're going to hear, we're going to feel, we're going to see every single element of pain, every single element of brutality. We're going to hear and see when they get stuck in the barbed wire. We're going to hear and see when the barbed wire is being pulled from their flesh. We're going to hear and see the blood. We're going to hear and see the pain. Everything is going to be times 10, I think, because there's going to be no crowd noise to mask it. I think it's going to make it even more uncomfortable, even more violent, even more brutal, and that's why I'm even more excited to see it. I mean, I guess we're a glutton for punishment when it comes to wanting to see this violence here, but I'm really excited for this one. I'm really, really excited for this one. I think that this is going to arguably be one of the most brutal barbed wire massacres we've ever seen in Impact Wrestling history. Of course, it goes back to the likes of, they had some of these matches in Japan, they had them in ECW as well, Terry Funk and Sabu were in one as well, so it's not the first time I've ever seen a match of this type, but it's certainly going to be violent, brutal, and I think it's going to get a lot of people talking. In terms of prediction to win this one, I would think Eddie Edwards wins, considering the punishment he has taken from Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock. To me, in storyline, it makes the most sense that he would win this match. But hey, anything's possible, and I don't even think there is going to actually be a winner here, because you just lose when you're in this match. And finally, of course, we have the main event. We have the 6-man interpromotional tag team match. We have AEW World Champion Kenny Omega teaming with the Impact Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, facing off against the Impact World Champion Rich Swann, Chris Sabin, and just added last night, TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose, replacing one half of the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley. Of course, Alex Shelley was removed from this match after he was unable to travel to Nashville due to unavoidable circumstances, is what they called it. Now, they have played up the storyline that Rich Swann wasn't aware of this at the time. Scott D'Amore, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, has recently informed him of this. As he arrived at the airport, he's not happy. I think this gives them an out. I think this gives them an out in the sense that I always felt that Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers would win because it makes the most sense. How do you get over this dominant reuniting faction like the Bullet Club? You don't have them lose their first match. You don't have this big star like Kenny Omega have his first match inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. You don't have him lose his first match because there's no desire to see him return if that's the case. So I always felt that Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers would win. And I still do think that's the case. I think just now it gives them an out. Because obviously we know that Rich Swann has been kind of feuding with Moose, sort of, or he's been hinted at that Moose versus Rich Swann was going to happen for the World Championship. Moose, of course, was feuding with Rich Swann's best friend, Willie Mack. They had the I Quit match at Genesis last weekend. Moose lost the match, but the only reason he lost is because he was beating Willie Mack so badly that Rich Swann came out and said, "Spare my best friend, I'll give you a shot at the Impact World Championship." So Moose said, "I quit," and he lost that match, and now he knows that eventually, in the future, he's getting an Impact World Championship opportunity. So how do you team with someone who eventually is going to try and challenge you for your World Championship and not so far in the future is going to challenge for your World Championship? You have to have eyes in the front of your head to face Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, but also eyes in the back of your head to even look at your tag team partner Moose. So I think Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers will win. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if Moose turns on Rich Swann, attacks him, lays him out, and maybe Kenny Omega gets the victory. I know a lot of people are talking about Jon Moxley possible appearances, the Young Bucks possible appearances. We're going to address that in another video today. As far as what I will say about those appearances, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we saw either Jon Moxley or the Young Bucks appear at Hard to Kill tonight. But I'm going to go with Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers to win. I'm also going to go with Moose to turn on Rich Swann, and I'm also going to go with at least one other AEW appearance tonight as well. So that is certainly going to be exciting to see. But of course, as always, this is just one man's predictions and opinions. What are your thoughts on tonight's Hard to Kill pay-per-view? What are your predictions? Let me know your thoughts and predictions in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Hard to Kill tonight, Impact Wrestling, WWE, AEW, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, finally, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.